wet and rainy Monday. Very dreary outside. Um, Kind of nice because I can have the window, well, the curtain open. Usually I have to keep it closed so the sun's not shining too brightly in here. Um, Let me put out a tweet real quick. There we go. Just gonna say, fair warning, I've been up since about 3 o'clock this morning. My son took off for a school like class trip kind of thing, and they had to be at the airport really early this morning, so had to get up at 3 to make sure that he got up in time to be able to, you know, have his breakfast, finish doing his last minute packing, and so yeah, I'm kind of running on just a few hours of sleep. It's not too unusual, but I was kind of stressed worrying about the flight and everything. So, but he's on his way to Portugal right now, apparently. Um, so yeah, probably after this stream, I'm going to zonk out on the couch and just be dead to the world for a while because I'm relieved now that I know that he's on the plane and they're off, but I'll be more relieved once I know that they've landed and everything was good, you know, no problems with the luggage and all that. So, yeah. You know, he's old enough to take care of himself, but I'm the mom, so I'm still worried about it and just, yeah, stressing about that. So I've been kind of wonky all weekend. But as some of you know, I did doodle around in housing this weekend. I was up probably about 5, 6 o'clock in the morning on Saturday morning and spent a few hours messing around in the house on one of my alts that isn't actually open to visitors. Just playing around with some ideas. I had a thought about how I might want to try and create some shading differences to help simulate depth and everything. You know, there's layering and stuff, but then it's not like we have the same type of tree in a multitude of shades. So you kind of have to trick the eye into thinking that you're looking at different types of shading and how things get lighter and fade off into the distance, that kind of thing. And then have the more dominant, you know, very strong colors in the front. So I Googled up a lot of images and found a landscape or whatever that I really liked. If you Google up, like, I think it's Japanese waterfall or Japanese landscape, this will probably pop up. You'll see something that looks really similar. That's where I got the idea from. It's basically the same concept, the layout, but you know, obviously due to limitations on items that I can use and colors that I have available and shapes, mine doesn't look exactly like it, but it's inspired by it. But you should be able to readily find the image and see what I was going for. Morning, Maddie. Glad you could join. So yeah, it seems to be a really big hit for a lot of people. I'm glad everyone liked it so far. I did put a copy of it on my mains plot, the Protostar Sky Plaza, so if you're interested in looking at it up close, just to kind of get a better feel of maybe some of the items that I used or how it looks from the side and that kind of thing, you're welcome to come to Carrot Greenleaf. That's my mains plot. It's down in the bunker, the arts museum or display or whatever you want to call it. The main, I think everything's off of the housing vendor to create this, except for the bits that are being used as a clouds, which it's kind of hard to see in this particular setting because I have a really big light. Can't hardly see it because you only see the bottom of it, but there's a really big light to brighten up this room, and I think that's causing a lot of glare. If I kind of back off, you can see there's some shapes there for the clouds. On my mains plot, you can see it a little better. Um, but I used Arctera pieces for that. It's some of the like glacial rises and drifts or whatever. It's like 3 different types. If you turn those onto their bottom, the shapes of those have nice little puffy cloud looking shapes, and that's what I used for that. There's like 5 or 6 pieces of that, and then the little decoration here, this little arch, that's the Draken gate. There's also a Draken, I don't know if it might be called arch actually, another Draken piece. I'm not sure where that one comes from, but the one that I used is actually craftable. So the Arctera pieces and the gate here, those are the only hard to obtain items. It really wasn't that difficult, especially if you have a main that's running through the Arctera dailies pretty regular. I'm sure you've picked up some of the Arctera glacial pieces, and really probably any of them would work nicely. I just chose a few certain ones because I like the shape of them. Of course, like I said, in this particular setting, you really can't see them too well. But in the museum part, you can see them a little bit better. There's actually like a hole here and some little gap bits here and stuff. But I got to thinking maybe some of you that like doodling around with this kind of thing and would like to try and put something together like this would be interested to know how I put it together. I already had a few people ask, like, what did I use for the sky and things like that. So I'm not going to just break it down and replicate it exactly. I'm just going to try and make a new one over here using similar technique. Hey Poi, good morning. Glad you could join us. Basically, with any little work that you put together like this, you want to start with, you can either start with the canvas or the frame. To me, both are equally important because the frame is what boxes everything in. If you don't start with the frame and you frame it later, which I kind of did with this one, you'll end up where you'll see I've had to double up the sides because there's some things that stuck out a little further than I intended. If I had actually built the frame in first, I probably would have kept it more confined and better in line. But you know, it's really up to you. If you're not really too concerned about having a thicker frame here and there, you know, it's doable. Notice it is pretty far out, and you'll understand why here in a bit. But it is pretty thick. It's almost like a shadow box kind of thing, or like a diorama kind of deal. So it's not really nicely flat. And because I'm using the wall pieces, here I'll show you, and hopefully I don't bork it up. Since I'm using the wall pieces, the Draken wall for the frame, you can see it's pretty long. So if you're not using this in a prefab home, you're going to have trouble. You'll have to frame it differently, probably using 2x4s or something to kind of more neatly box it in, as well as some of the items that I've used, they stick out pretty far. If it's not the walls, then there's some metal crates that I'm using. I decided not to use the single metal crate, which is craftable. I just happen to have a pile of crates on hand because that's buyable. And yeah, it's just a lot of based on where you're wanting to put the painting, what kind of space you have, that kind of thing, which would probably determine what you know, how you put it together. For me, since I'm just flat out, I don't really have too many concerns about, space and all that. I just put it together however I want and then deal with the consequences afterwards. But, those are things that you want to keep in mind if you have a custom house that has really thin walls, kind of like where we built the birds. You have to pay a little closer attention as to what you're using and how you're using it, so that it doesn't stick out strangely or intrude in other places that you don't want it to. But if you're like me and could care less how that works out, or if you have a prefab home that you can just sink everything into the wall, and then I will show you how I kind of did this, and then maybe from there you can come up with some of your own ideas. So basically, what I started with for this one is I knew I was going to be using glass, because for anyone that's used glass at all, you'll know that as you layer it, the more white it becomes. And it's really, it doesn't matter what color you use. In the case of this one, I used green. We'll try blue this time. Like I said, not that it really matters, but I will show you what I mean. You can see that this is like, I think it's 5 or 6 layers of green glass. You can see here, it doesn't look green at all. It's very whitish, and that's true for any of them that you put together. Hey, Cheeky and Faye, good morning, you guys. Glad you could join us. It just becomes whiter and whiter and whiter. The only part that retains really any kind of hint of color are the corners. So you can see how I've used, if I can get the view in there good, that it's a little bit of green. And you can see where all the layers are. Just layered them in. And so, if you want a little hint of green, use green. If you want a little hint of blue, use blue, red, whatever. I use the unframed ones because I think all of the framed glass is pretty much the blue, if I remember right. So if you want a little bit of different coloring, try the unframed. But like I said, you're only going to notice it in the corners, really. So then, once I get my frame of glass here, I knocked it down to, I think it was about half the size of the original, and I used that as my base. Now, this is like my canvas size. How, the size that I want the picture. I want everything to kind of keep within that a little square, and then the frame will go around it, and that's basically what I did here. Second is, since it's a landscape, you're going to want some kind of a sky. You could use anything whitish, grayish, bluish. If you want to really maintain the blue sky, find something blue. For example, white, you could use the towels. There's the gift box bottom, if you happen to have one of those. Just note that that one's pretty shiny. That might have different effects on it. For blue, there's the table, exile table, I think it is. We've used that quite a few times. You could probably just use a travel poster if you wanted, one that's got some nice coloring in the back, because basically you're going to end up covering up most of it anyway, so you could probably disguise it. So, for example, the only trouble with using the posters is oh, I got that word table. Mara's like, why can't I select the posters? They're not the square shape. So either you'd have to duplicate it a couple of times, maybe like have one. What I would probably do is, let's just try Let's try, see what choices we got here. No. I'm looking for one that I can lay on its side. I think that will work better. Purple. That's kind of pretty, but the text takes up so much of the space. I wonder if that would work. Maybe. We'll try that one. So what I'm going to do is put this in behind. This may not work at all, but we're going to attempt it. Now, since I know I'm going to have a frame coming outside of the white glass, I'm allowing myself to kind of go a little bit beyond the size of the glass with this particular frame because I want to get as much of this as I can. But you could use a tabletop. There's well, the thing I used was the crates. Let me show you. I used the metal crates. I just picked a side and used that. It's a little bit dark on the edges, but it's got a nice light green. I used that also for the forest painting that I made for Cheeky. Of course, I used the single one. I didn't grab all these. I just grabbed this one for the one over here because it was handy. I didn't want to go back and craft it. That's why I used all the pieces here. Either I could grab them off of the auction, the housing vendor, or I already had them in the crate. It's just ended up being that this one was craftable and these came from Arctera, the clouds. Okay, so what I did was once I had the background picked and got my first layer of glass in, like so, then you start building up. You kind of have to just do it layer by layer is what I did. So let me get, I have a little sample picture that I'm going to go by. And actually, I'm probably not even going to use this because this doesn't go with that, but we're going to try it anyway. So what I'm going to do is start laying in some shapes. It could be trees if you just want a tree line. What I used for most of this was the bramble bushes because those are really great. They're a nice length. They're full. You can get them kind of relatively flat and you don't have to use a ton of them. This particular piece altogether, frame included, was, I think it was 108 pieces. I know it might sound like a lot to some, but considering how detailed you can really go with these, that's pretty reasonable. I usually like to keep mine around 100 or so. So 108 is really not too bad. So what I did was I just started laying in some trees for that one. This one we're going to do, I really don't think this is going to work because it seems too narrow. I'm going to have all that green to cover up, so let's just trade this out. Let's let me get the crate selected. Where is that? Maybe it's under metal. There we go. See, it's just that that one little color, just to kind of give a little bit of a background. And you can see I only used it for the upper half. Like I said, if you want to go lighter or just a stricter blue, you could use the table. Notice that thing is still doing that little quirky rotate thing. Let's go with that one, just to be different, I guess. Okay, so just make sure that your first layer is over top of your background piece, and then we'll start laying in. Like I said, you could do the trees, the bushes, whatever you want. I'm going to try rocks today. Let's see. Want something easy to get a hold of, something that's got a lot of character to it, a lot of different lines and stuff. So I know there's actual rocks and things we could use. You could probably go with ice if you want to go icy. Frozen water might be nice. It's got some nice shapes and stuff. Let's, what am I doing here? Let's try that. And I'm going to go with the darker part. I'm going to flip it over on its bottom. Now I want this above the first pane of glass. So we're going to, now you'll see me looking over here. I'm looking at a reference picture, just kind of just get an idea of how I want this to go. Yeah, I think I'm actually going to drop it behind the first pane. Let's pull that forward a little bit because I'm thinking, let's put it behind. I'll get my mind made up here shortly. What it is I want this to be pretty flat, as flat as I can make it, and still have it show up. So let's see, let's do it this way first. And again, I want to kind of ride it up to the edge here. And remember, as you're layering this, there's bound to be a lot of bits that aren't going to show up later, just because of the nature of how you're building it, you're packing it in. But that's okay. You know, later if you decide you just definitely don't want something showing, you can remove it. Okay, I'm thinking for these back pieces, I may flip these to use the white the first time. Again, I want the lighter colors in the back, and I'm going to darken it as we come up front. So it's kind of handy that this particular piece, I can use it two different ways. I'm going to rearrange them here in a sec. Oops. Because I don't like it. I liked it better the way I had it. Put this one on this side. Over here. There we go, that's a little better. Okay, now I want that first pane of glass on top of those. And that brightens them up even more. Then I'm going to bring one of those forward. And then I'm going to flip it. And I want it on top of the glass. Let's see, let's change the shape a little bit. And one over here. So you don't want to cover up all of the back layer there. Just want to kind of show it a little bit. So there's that one. Now I'm going to replicate the glass and bring in a new layer above this one. So it makes this one even lighter, but this one lightens up, but it's not as light as the original, if that makes sense. Okay, then we're going to do another one. Bring that up. Let's see, change the shape again. It'd probably help if see, I'm gonna add another layer of glass. I want this one to be darker than the one behind it. Yeah, it's just slightly darker, but it just keeps it a little different. Another one. Just a little bit here. And then one on this side. Like there. Okay, then I'm going to add another piece of glass. See how you've got several different colorings here? It's basically the same piece, just over and over. It's just the glass, every time you layer it, those in the back get even lighter and lighter. So it keeps the shading different. So now we're going to put in the main bits up here in the front. So we're going to use this one. Yeah, I think I'm going to add one extra. And just remember, the more layers like this that you put in, the thicker your frame is going to have to be to kind of keep it all in. This one's staying relatively flatter than this one because the bushes were a little thicker than the frozen lake, so that has a factor to it. Okay, so let's turn this one like so. A little bit like that. And then just start building it up. It's kind of like a mountainy kind of thing going on. And make like that. one more. Right here. So you've got some mountains in the back, and then you've got some, this one in the foreground here. Kind of what we're going for anyway. So now I need to add some kind of greenery. Like I said, what I used mostly for this one was the bramble bushes, which is all of these rows are all bramble bushes. And in the front, I used the pine trees that you get from, so the brambles are these here. Just these, I've just, you know, tilted them so you don't see the stick parts, you just see the grass. You can see they're relatively flat on the top, so if you turn them to the side, it works out pretty good. You could also use the leaning one. I chose the this one here just because it's a little bit more straight, a little easier to work with, but you could probably use either. And then the pine was the white one. This one here. That's all of these trees here. Just really tiny ones, and then I used some on the side. For the darker bushes up front, those are the mossy, the dark moss bush. Just use bits of those because they come up a lot darker than the pine tree, and I wanted to really bring up some color. And it's the same things that I spotted the rocks with, was mossy bushes as well. So for this one, I want to use probably, you could use the overgrowth probably, or the mossy overgrowth. Probably any of that would work. Let's just look and see coloring, what looks good on this. I'm going to lay out several different ones that we might want to use. I think the leafy will be a little too bright, but never know. Won't know until we try it. I'll just put one of those out there. And put one of those there as well. Now again, these have to be relatively small. And of course, with the mossy ones, they move. So if you are using a house above ground, or maybe even some of the interior ones, there is a little bit of movement to these. I use them on the forest painting as part of the pathway, and you'll see it kind of wiggles and stuff. So yeah. And yeah, the back ones do kind of look a bit like clouds, which, you know, kind of works. It's not that bad. You could even add some smaller ones to make them look like little poofies up here if you want. So obviously these are going to have to be really, really tiny. Just copy the transform. Look, same size, and look how big a difference there is in those. So what we're going to do is we're just going to add some bits of growth on here to kind of, you know, stimulate that there's some actual life going on this cold rock here. And it'll help bring it out from the background too, depending on how you do it. Now I could, there is supposed to be like some foggy bits going on here. Let's see if I can. We'll just go with the idea that these white ones are like puffs of cloud. Not as faint as one might like, but we'll see. Supposed to be a little bit here. Oh, got a bit of ringing in my ear. Maybe you could use some snow-covered trees if you wanted more little fluffiness or whatever. But it's really hard to get like a misty look, and I don't want to use like the smoking, the blue torch or anything like that, because I really would prefer not to have any kind of movement and stuff. Checking coloring here to see if this looks better. Maybe a mixture of all three. I think this one's going to be too big though. See how this does look a little bit more blue. It might be because of using the blue table helps bring the blue out. But it's mostly in the corners, and even that is turning really so bright in the layers. If you feel like something needs to be lighter, just add another color, another layer of glass. Sneak it in there. You want to make it even more light in the back, and you want that pop, that front part to pop a little bit more. That will work. I can't really put in another piece of glass like in between here to get this to kind of be fuzzy, because then you'll see the line of glass, and that really won't work too nicely. It's the only downfall on that particular thing. It's a lot easier to do it in layers like this one than in this way, but we'll give it a try anyway. Let's see. With some kind of tree up front here. Oh, not that big. And this is all I did. I just kept tweaking, adjusting, even after I posted the picture on Twitter about the painting that I'd done. I went back and tweaked it a little bit. I'll explain what I did. I modified the waterfall here a bit, which is just icicles. Can't tell from here, but yeah, there we go. Icicle clusters mostly. If you get really up close, you can see how I've kind of slipped them in. It doesn't make any sense from the side, obviously, but obsidian stones for most of the rocks here, and then the icicles just to make the water. I changed those a bit. They were a little crooked for me, so I changed them up just slightly. And then here they were kind of sticking up, so there was like some air time between the icicle and the stone, and I just laid them as flat as I could get them. They're still a little bit up, but not as much as they were before. And then there was one little bush here that was kind of cocked a little different, and I didn't like it, so I tilted it back down. So if you look at the original that I posted about, see, now you can see the shapes of the Arctera pieces. Anyway, if you look at the picture on Twitter, you'll see that there's a little bit of a bump there, and I've just smoothed it down But again, with the layering like this, it's a little tough to select pieces, so you do have to use the decor finder or your place decor list to kind of find it. It did take a little time. It's helpful here because there's basically nothing else around. So in a house that's full of furniture, you might have a little bit of trouble. My best recommendation is if you have an alt that you can build on, especially if you're not using any particularly tough pieces to get a hold of, and you don't mind having to buy a duplicate later, I would strongly suggest building these paintings and things off-site and then bringing them in with Katya's add-on, just for ease of if there's any adjustments you need to make later, like if you don't like the shape of the river or whatever, then you have the opportunity to fix it before you get into a really decor-heavy plot. Let's see. Trying to decide. I want the shape of this. And of course, on the one that I'm looking at, there's like little buildings and stuff. I'm not going to get that detailed on it because this is just an example, but you could try putting in little houses. I mean, I think this is like about as elaborate as I want to get, a little archway kind of thing. I know Iuni and a couple others have been doing some paintings where they've been adding in little houses and things, and they're really cute. But for me, at least in these particular ones, I didn't want to get that detailed. But let's see. Let's look in the rocks. No. No. Let's just go with the gray. Got someone asking about information I need for the CBDC stuff. Actually had a guildmate to put something together, which is awesome. I love that. The more the merrier. If you don't know what I'm talking about, CBDC is Custom Built Decor Challenge. It is a monthly thing that we're doing where we give a theme and people build something to that theme, and then we showcase it at the end of the month. Which reminds me, they did have Fade Fest yesterday, apparently, which if I hadn't had the whole having to get up early this morning to get my son ready for the airport, I probably would have dropped in yesterday, but we just had so many things to take care of. We were making sure that most of his stuff was already packed up yesterday. And of course, confirming with his ride that they were going to come and get him and all that stuff. But one of the things they did for Fade Fest this year was what they called a speed build. Supposedly, participants were told at the time of the event what the theme would be, and then they were given 2 hours to put something together. Disappointingly, they allowed people to use KBT sets, which I think personally, it's up to the judges how they want to do that. But personally, it seemed like it kind of defeated the purpose of having a timed build, a 2-hour window to do it, because it doesn't take but a couple of clicks to use the KBT thing. It seemed, I don't want to say cheating, it just seemed kind of lame that you would already have something built that happened to fit the theme. I think it would have been better if and more challenging if they had actually said, no, you have to build it straight up, and have somebody on the plot with whoever was building just to make sure that they didn't just plop it out from a KBT code. But that's just me. But they did have some nice entries from what I understand. I think the theme was rest and relaxation or something. And so there was, I think it was Katya's Beach Bum plot, the one that they built, she built way back with the islands off in the distance, and same place where she put the seahorse painting. And then I think another one submitted some paintings. I didn't get a chance to really look at all of them. I stepped in this morning really quickly just to kind of get a look. And that was when I realized that basically at least some of the builders just used things that they had already built. And I thought, this kind of seems not a good way to do it. But that's, again, my opinion. They were still great builds. It's just, I thought the purpose of a speed build was to give you a limited time and make you build something in that window of time. I think the outcome might have been different, or at least more interesting as far as to see what they could do with 2 hours. Yeah, exactly, Maddie. Like I said, it's not that it wasn't a great build, and it's not deserving of recognition and everything. But when I read the rules of how the competition was supposed to go, I just assumed it would be, they would be given the theme and they would actually build it right there. But it didn't turn out that way. So yeah, it wasn't quite what I was expecting. But like I said, it might have just been me expecting more than, maybe it was just not viable to have people sit there for 2 hours building. When they, maybe wanted to participate in some of the other things going on. I really don't know, but it just seemed kind of funny. If I was to give a competition and say, hey, I'm going to give you 2 hours, I want something fresh. It's kind of like with the CBDC. While I welcome people to show things that they've built in the past, I really am encouraging folks to come up with some new things. But again, that's just me. But yeah, I went this morning just to have a really quick peek, and I was like, okay. Let me just note down their name. They're telling me where their item is located. Before I forget, if I'm understanding them right, they built a crane game. They describe it as one of those machines that you insert coins in and try to catch a plushie. That's what it sounds like. And I'm glad that you were able to get yours down. Let me write that down, Maddie. Is that the same plot that you had the other one on? Everybody's using the bunker too. I don't know, the bunker seems to be where everybody's little secret building stuffs are. Anyway, trying to build like some kind of like a little stair thing. I'm a jig. I don't know what you call it. And I know it seems weird that it's getting smaller as I'm going lower, but that's the way it looks like in the picture, so I'm just kind of going with it here. Oh, that's too small. Yeah, it's kind of what I did in the past too. Anyway, something like that. Let's see. Maybe that's too big of a step down. I'll move this. That'll be the bottom step. Let's see, that's 15, that's 10. Make one 12. One in between there, I think. That's 18, that's not too far off, is it? Probably going to have to bring all this forward because I think that's going to be too narrow. Yeah. Set up. Let me just link all these together. This is what I mean by it's gonna stick out of ways. Oh my gosh. Maybe I can flatten it up a little bit better. First I just need to get the sides down. Sides, not sides. Again, apologies if I'm not making fully sense, because I'm running on, as I said, just a few hours sleep. Some of you younger folks, that's probably not a big deal, but for me, it's a pretty big deal. This old lady can't handle that stuff like I once could. Let's see. I like this, but I want it up above. There, that looks a little better. Okay, so what I need to do is somehow get these kind of blend together a little better. Let's see how I want to do that. Can't push it in too far because then the steps disappear. But I need to push it in as best as I can. And then brings this forward. Well, now since that is perfectly flat, this is a little tougher. I don't know if I'm going to be able to pull this off or not. See how we do that. That might work. Something like so. Really not liking that. Let's try this way. Push this up a little bit more. I know it looks a little weird from the sides, but again, you're mostly looking at these paintings from the front. As long as it looks like you want from the front, excuse me, that's really the big thing. Let's see. Need to bring this down a little bit. Finish covering that up. Yeah, there's supposed to be like a little plateau here with like some buildings and stuff, but that's like not even close. think. Yeah, maybe that's what I need. Something like that. The coloring's a little different now, but oh well. Some kind of house thing. I don't know what I want to use for buildings, but something dark, I guess. Maybe some cover part pieces. Don't think I have any in the crate. What is that? Quarter. Edge. Let's just try it. Probably not going to be the shape I want, but we'll see. And I'm pretty sure we're going to have to make that super tiny. Yeah, I'm probably going to have to find something else to represent like a building because I think these would be too teensy weensy. But you get the idea. You could put like some kind of like, I don't know, shrine, a house, a building, some kind of thing here. And then replicate that. Let's see. Replicate that here. Like have another one here and then maybe something up at the top. Some kind of a little doohickey there. Now notice that there's these holes here. You could leave them just for interest's sake, or you can fill them up. Just either replicate it and position it so that it's covering it behind there if you want. But I like that, you know, there's different shades and crevices and things. It kind of adds a little character to it, however you want to do it. Again, you could add lots of different grass. We tried different grasses that might not be, you know, ideal. Kind of the colors. It probably would be best if we picked one and then use the same one throughout. Then again, if you want to try and work with shading, maybe use darker ones up at the top, and then as you get lower, use darker ones. Did I see darker twice? I meant lighter ones at the top and then darker ones at the bottom. So like maybe use only the overgrowth up here, and then as well play with the sizes. For like really up top in the distance, you might use like half the size of that to decorate a little bit greenery up in here. You use it a little bigger on this level, and then as you get closer, it's bigger and bigger. That helps with the playing with the brain as far as depth and everything. Trying to think what else. And of course, once you think you're done, then that's when you kind of start playing around with frames. Now, something that I've discovered as I've been passing out copies of different paintings and stuff, um, usually I pick a frame just because I like the look of it as opposed to the painting. I don't really pay too much attention to the surrounding area, but when I go to move a painting to someone else's plot, I do modify things slightly depending on the situation. Like for the swan painting, I changed it to have a round frame, which is basically just multiples of a dome, so you get the trim. But I used a darker wood because in the gallery that I have, the walls are light, so a darker frame shows up better. When I went to make a copy for, I think it was Poi that took a copy of the swans, the wall for that house was already dark. So what I did was I altered the coloring of the outer ring of the frame for the swans to a lighter dome color. So be willing to just kind of make adjustments like that if you decide to share some of your work with someone else. You may have to modify it slightly. Like I said, for me, usually I go with darker frames. Um, Even on this darker wall, I went with a darker frame, even though it doesn't really show up too well here. I knew that eventually it was going to go to the lighter walled gallery, which a darker frame really pops on that one. So for me, darker frames tend to be my preferred. But keep in mind, again, if you're going for a really narrow build, specifically for use in a custom home where the walls are not too thick, then you want to go with things like the 2x4s, the metal edge 2x4s. Maybe even you could get away with using the metal planks even. Books would probably work okay if you make them small. In fact, let's just show what I mean by that. So like you could pick well, I'm probably going to go and really blow these up because for me the depth of it doesn't really matter. But like if you really want to have a pretty fancy framing, you could use the spines of the books. Would probably work nice. You'll just have to get around the fact that you have to hide the edges where the pages show. Let's see what we got here. That's going to be too thick, so we're going to knock that down. Try it at 2. Let's see how many it takes to frame this up. Just for giggles. And usually what I do, especially if you're working with kind of like this square, usually whatever length you need here, you can just replicate it. But it might not work that way, depending on like how far in I push this, how far out I have to push it to cover up all this jibber jabber here. Maybe you don't like that the pattern repeats. For that, then again, I would say stick with like 2x4s. 2x4s are nice and neat. Sometimes you can get away with using the pre-made picture frames off of some of the portraits and stuff. But if you're working like this, where you really need that thickness, those probably won't work as well because you have the back of the painting to have to contend with. The layering is too thin. Of course, if depending on how you build it, it might not be that bad. Like I used a prefab frame for the ballerina, but that one was relatively flat anyway, so I was able to get away with it. I'm just going to line these up how I think it'll fit. And then get out the handy dandy Katia tool. Find an empty thingamabob. Number 22 is our lucky number. I'm just going to drop this down. And notice these are still sticking out quite a bit. Again, just kind of go with it if you can. If you see something sticking out that you don't want sticking out past the frame, then just push it back. These I'm going to leave purposely sticking out. Because again, I'm looking at it from the front. I'm not looking at it from the side or anything. So we're just going to swing. Woo, swing, swing. Notice how it's a different length this way. So what we'll do is we'll line up the top one, push in the bottom, and then we'll just kind of even that up like so. And then since this is what I'm going to do is I'm lining up the edge here, and then I'm noticing that there's still a pretty significant gap there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double this one. Now you could, if you want, double all of them if you want. For me, doubling just the sides is fine. I don't mind it that way. Some would prefer to have an equal size on all around. I think it's just, well, these look crooked, don't they? That explains so much. Notice that one come out just right. So weird. Push this out again. Maybe it was just been crooked. That was probably it. There we go. Now I see there's a little bit of this one sticking out. Is it a big deal? No, to just push it in. It doesn't change too much. And there you go. There's a nice little frame for that. May not be exactly what you're hoping for as far as example wise, but that's about as good as I can do on a whim. Again, like I said, I spent several hours. I would say 2.5, 3 on this one, just messing around trying to get it. You can see if you come in really close, you can see how there's like a gap here. I wanted to keep the background kind of the same, so it looked like a little river going through. Again, this one probably isn't ideal because of that part that's sticking out, but it's an idea, a concept, something. It kind of looks sort of reminiscent of the picture I'm looking at, but hey Aurora, glad you could join us. So yeah, there you go. Oh, there's another one that's sticking out. There's something else too. Once you put your frames in, then you have to kind of go around and do some trimming. Make sure everything's kind of tucked in nice and neat. But yeah, that's an example. Probably put some more another layer of rocks here just to bring in an extra bit. Maybe just extend this one a little bit more to cover up this corner here. Put some greenery along the edges here. Probably what I do. But yeah, I hope you guys had fun. Just kind of a rough explanation as to how I did this. It's just several layers of glass and building on those layers, making sure that you understand that the stuff that's going to be at the back is going to be much lighter than you first lay it down, because as you add more and more glass, the lightness comes into play, and it kind of really affects how the colors look. It's more noticeable probably on same colored items, like here you see that it's much lighter even though it's the same piece, and that's just due to the effect of the glass. It's really great for giving kind of a hazy look when you normally can't create that. Yeah, it's something to play with. Hopefully some of you that have been doing some of these paintings will be able to use that idea and really fly with it. All I can say is, again, one of my favorite things to do is to grab an image off of Google and use that as my base idea. You know, a lot of people going, "Oh, you're so clever and creative," and it's like, well, not really, because I'm looking at a picture to kind of get the arrangement right. Maybe I wouldn't think to put that little doohickey up here. I would have just left the cliff blank. But that little doohickey there helps sell the idea that it's in the distance, but it's still in the foreground from where everything else is, because there's not a lot of detail out in the back. Yeah, Google Images, find something that you like, and then see if you can kind of replicate it. Landscapes are probably the most forgiving when it comes to these type of little creations, because it's fluid enough where even if you don't get the line perfectly the same as what you see in the picture, obviously, if, like I said, if you Google up Japanese waterfall or Japanese landscape painting or whatever, you'll probably find the image that I used for this inspiration relatively quick. And you see that the lines that I have are really nothing like what's in the actual painting. It's just reminiscent of it. And that's why I like landscapes so much, because even if you make a boo-boo or it's not exactly the same, you still get the idea, and it still kind of works in your favor. That it has that natural feel. It's probably about as close to landscaping as I can get, is something like this. Well, thank you, Poi. I appreciate that. Definitely won't work for every image that you find. Like I said, landscape's probably the easiest. I think the toughest would be portraits of some kind. I know I had a really, really hard time with just that, the ballerina. And even looking at her now, I'm like, ugh, she looks so awful. But yeah, it's challenging, it's fun, it's relaxing for me. Others might find it stressful, I don't know. But yeah, I hope this kind of explanation kind of helps those of you that are trying these things. Maybe you can work something up. I will see about maybe reworking this a little bit later. I'll probably change it up because I don't quite like how this looks. When you tilt it, the lighting changes the coloring. I want it to be dark just like the rest of this, so I'm gonna have to figure out a way to do that a little better. But for now, I think I'm going to go ahead and close it up and get some sleep, because I feel the yawning coming on. I've eaten already, so that's not helping because I got a full belly and I'm like getting sleepy and stuff. But I'm kind of holding out because I know my son's plane is supposed to land pretty soon, if not already. So I want to go check on that and make sure everything went all hunky-dory. In fact, I'm expecting a text from him as soon as they land. So I'm kind of nervous about that and anxious. And as soon as that arrives, then I'm going to go sleep. So thank you guys for joining. I hope you had fun. Just a reminder for those of you that are interested in being included in the CBDC showcase at the end of the month, which is scheduled for the 31st, which isn't really all that far away. I don't have my calendar up, but I think it's about a week or so, somewhere around there. And if you're interested in being included and have built something for the CBDC, which this month's theme is games, just send me word via Twitter, Twitch, the forums, game, however you want to get it to me. And give me the information, what region you're on, if it's NA or what are we, EU. Gosh, I can't think. NA or EU, what faction you're on, what character name it is so I can find it, what it is so I am sure to call it the right thing instead of something else, and roughly about where it is on the plot. Like if it's in the bunker house, if it's in the back corner, wherever. That way I can quickly find it and showcase it. Because again, we're not touring the houses that these things are on. We're just looking at the specific CBDC bill that you've put together. And I will showcase all of those. So far, I think we've got 6 that I have listed. Aurora's got 1, and Maddie just mentioned about theirs. So that's 8 entries so far, which is fabulous. So the more the merrier. If you still have about a week or so to put something together, if you haven't yet and would like to, I would definitely be thrilled if you did. But yeah. I think that's the big thing. Of course, this Wednesday is Dominion's turn for house tours. Fingers crossed I can find some houses on that side to look at. I haven't had a chance to look lately, so we'll see. But if nothing else, there's plenty of exile ones that we can go and tour. So yeah, I hope you guys had fun. Looking forward to seeing other people's creations. Based on what they've discovered here, and hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you later. Bye bye.